In this episode, we focus on how real security improvements often depend less on having the perfect technical idea and more on getting an organization to actually change what it does day to day. Change sounds simple until you watch how many forces push against it, including habits, competing priorities, fear of disruption, and the quiet belief that security is someone else's problem. In that environment, two things dramatically increase your odds of success: a credible executive sponsor who can align the organization behind the change, and early wins that people can see, feel, and believe. Executive sponsorship gives change authority, resources, and legitimacy, while early wins give change momentum, proof, and emotional buy-in. For brand new learners, this matters because you will encounter situations where the right answer is obvious from a security perspective, yet nothing happens because no one has the power or will to move it. Understanding sponsorship and early wins helps you avoid the trap of thinking that better arguments alone will carry the day. Change is a social process as much as it is a technical one, and learning to navigate it is a core security leadership skill. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Executive sponsorship is not the same thing as a senior person saying they support security in general, because general support does not move obstacles out of the way. A real sponsor is someone with enough authority to make decisions, enough influence to shape priorities, and enough commitment to stay involved when resistance appears. Sponsorship is also specific to a change, not to a team, meaning the sponsor owns the outcome and is willing to attach their name to it. In practical terms, a sponsor can approve funding, resolve conflicts between departments, set expectations with other leaders, and ensure that security work is not endlessly deprioritized. Without that, security teams can end up trapped in persuasion mode, trying to convince every stakeholder one at a time while the problem grows. A sponsor also provides cover, because change creates discomfort and sometimes short-term pain, and people look for someone to blame when friction appears. When the sponsor publicly supports the change and continues supporting it after the first complaints, the organization learns that this change is not optional and not temporary. That single signal can be more powerful than weeks of technical explanations. To find or cultivate sponsorship, you have to understand what executives care about and how they evaluate requests, because they are usually balancing risk, cost, and reputation at the same time. An executive sponsor is more likely to commit when the change is framed in terms of outcomes they recognize, such as reduced chance of a major outage, reduced exposure of sensitive data, improved regulatory posture, or improved customer trust. This does not mean using fear as a tool. It means translating security risk into organizational risk that can be weighed alongside other priorities. It also helps to be specific about what is being asked, because executives are skeptical of vague initiatives that expand endlessly. A well-framed sponsorship request defines the target outcome, the time horizon, the scope, and what decisions or resources are needed from the sponsor. It also anticipates the major sources of resistance, because a sponsor wants to know where the conflict will occur and what it will cost politically. When you bring clarity, you reduce the perceived risk of sponsoring the change. Even with a sponsor, change can stall if people do not believe it will work, which is why visible early wins are so important. Many security initiatives fail because they feel like long, abstract projects with benefits that appear far in the future, while the costs appear immediately in the form of work, disruption, or restrictions. An early win is a small but meaningful result that shows progress quickly and proves that the change can produce real value. The early win must be visible, meaning that the people affected can recognize it and talk about it, not just that a report exists somewhere. It also must be connected to the larger goal, because random quick wins can create activity without direction and may even distract from the real change. For example, if the goal is to reduce account compromise risk, an early win might be a measurable reduction in insecure access pathways for a high-impact group, not merely a new document announcing intentions. Early wins create credibility because they replace promises with evidence, and evidence changes minds faster than explanations. Choosing the right early win requires balancing impact with feasibility, because if the first milestone is too small, it will not matter, and if it is too big, it will not arrive in time to build momentum. A strong early win often targets a narrow scope with high relevance, such as a critical system, a high-risk workflow, or a group that is ready to adopt change. Narrow scope keeps the effort manageable and reduces uncertainty, while high relevance ensures the win feels meaningful. It also helps if the win reduces pain rather than only adding constraints, because people embrace improvements that make their work easier or safer without extra burden. In security, some wins can be framed as reducing friction by removing confusing processes, standardizing access methods, or clarifying responsibilities, as long as the outcome truly reduces risk. When you pick an early win, you are also picking a story, because the organization will interpret the first result as a preview of what the broader initiative will feel like. A win that arrives cleanly and improves clarity sets a positive narrative, while a win that arrives messy and disruptive can poison the well. Executive sponsorship and early wins reinforce each other, and understanding that relationship helps you drive change more strategically. Sponsorship increases the chance that you can deliver an early win by giving you access, resources, and coordination across teams. Early wins increase the strength of sponsorship by giving the sponsor confidence that their support is paying off and making it easier for them to defend the initiative to peers. Without early wins, a sponsor may drift away because their attention is pulled by other priorities and the initiative loses air cover. Without sponsorship, early wins may remain isolated pockets of success that cannot scale because teams do not feel compelled to align. In other words, sponsorship gives you reach, and early wins give you traction. If you only have one of the two, progress becomes fragile, and fragile progress often collapses when the organization faces its next surge of workload. Driving change means intentionally building both at the same time rather than hoping one will create the other. A key part of making early wins visible is communicating them in a way that is honest, concrete, and connected to outcomes. Visibility is not bragging. It is ensuring that people understand what changed and why it matters so they can support continued progress. The communication should include what was done, what outcome it improved, and what will happen next, all stated in plain language. It should also be candid about what is still incomplete, because overstating a win damages trust and makes future messages less credible. A good win communication also recognizes the people who did the work, because recognition creates positive reinforcement and encourages others to participate. In security, where work is sometimes seen as thankless or obstructive, recognition can shift culture by making security improvement feel like shared achievement. The sponsor can amplify this communication, which increases its reach and signals that leadership values the progress. Over time, repeated small wins build a sense that change is normal rather than exceptional. Driving change also means anticipating resistance and building the path so people can adopt the new behavior without guessing. Even when people agree with a security goal, they may resist because they fear added workload, they worry about losing autonomy, or they believe the change will slow down their mission. An executive sponsor can help by setting expectations and aligning priorities, but the day-to-day adoption still depends on practical enablement. That means reducing confusion, providing clear guidance, and designing the change so it fits operational reality. Early wins help here because they can be used to test assumptions and refine the approach before scaling. If the pilot reveals that a new process is confusing or burdensome, you can adjust while the scope is still small, and then present the adjusted approach as part of the success story. This makes the broader rollout smoother and reduces the chance of backlash. Change that learns early tends to last longer than change that declares itself finished. Another often overlooked element is making the sponsor's role visible in the right way, because sponsorship is not only about behind-the-scenes approvals. When leaders visibly support a change, they shape social norms, and social norms often drive behavior more powerfully than formal rules. Visible sponsorship can take the form of the sponsor repeating the priority in leadership forums, asking for progress updates publicly, or reinforcing that the change aligns with organizational goals. It can also include the sponsor intervening when a team tries to bypass the change, because that moment signals whether the initiative has teeth. However, sponsorship should not turn into micromanagement, because the sponsor's value is authority and alignment, not detailed control. A healthy pattern is that the sponsor clears obstacles and reinforces priorities, while the team's own implementation and execution. When this balance is maintained, the initiative gains both legitimacy and competence, which is the combination that sustains change. Measuring early wins is also important because organizations trust what they can measure, and measured wins are easier to defend against skepticism. Measurement does not need to be complicated. It just needs to be tied to the outcome and collected consistently. For example, if the goal is faster incident containment, a measurable early win might be reduced time between detection and isolation for a specific type of event. If the goal is reduced exposure, a measurable win might be a reduction in unnecessary access to a sensitive system for a defined group. The key is to avoid vanity measures that look impressive but do not reflect real improvement. When the measure is meaningful, it becomes a progress signal that keeps attention on the change. It also helps the sponsor communicate value in terms others understand, such as reduced operational risk or improved reliability. Over time, these measures help you decide where to invest next, because you can see which efforts produce the most improvement. As you wrap your head around this topic, it helps to remember that driving change is not a single event. It is a sequence of moves that build confidence and alignment step by step. Executive sponsorship provides the authority and resources to make change possible across boundaries, while visible early wins provide the proof and momentum that make change feel real. Together, they create a cycle where progress attracts more support, and more support enables more progress. For a brand new learner, the empowering takeaway is that you do not have to wait until you are senior to contribute to this cycle. You can help define win-worthy milestones. You can communicate progress clearly, and you can design improvements that fit real workflows. The more you focus on outcomes that people can see and measure, the more likely it is that your security recommendations will move from talk into action. In cybersecurity, the strongest ideas are the ones that actually get adopted, and sponsorship plus early wins is one of the most reliable paths to adoption.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.